The afternoon was supposed to be quiet. One of those slow Saturdays where the sun hangs low and the neighborhood feels half asleep. My wife, Lena, had just stepped outside to take the trash down to the curb. I stayed inside, rinsing coffee mugs, half listening to the hum of the dishwasher. Then I heard shouting. Not loud at first. Sharp, aggressive words cutting through the stillness. I looked out the front window and saw a man standing too close to Lena. He wore a black vest with big white letters that read, HOA Enforcement. A badge hung crookedly from his chest, cheap and overly shiny. Lena had one hand raised, calm but defensive. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught phrases like violation, fine, and non-compliance. That's when I stepped onto the porch. "Is there a problem?" I called out. The man didn't even look at me. He leaned closer to Lena, his voice rising. "I'm talking to you. Don't interrupt." Lena turned slightly toward me. "He says the trash bin is out too early." I frowned. Trash day was tomorrow, but everyone put bins out early. No one ever made an issue of it. "I'll take it back in," she said, reaching for the bin. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the man grabbed her wrist. Everything slowed down. "Don't touch me," Lena said, pulling back. The man's face twisted, red with anger. "You don't get to tell me what to do." Then it happened. He raised his hand and slapped her. It wasn't dramatic or exaggerated, just a sudden, shocking sound that echoed down the street. Lena stumbled back, stunned more than hurt. For a second, no one moved. Then something inside me snapped. I stepped off the porch, my voice steady but cold. "Step away from my wife." The man finally looked at me, smirking. "You want trouble too?" I noticed things then. The vest looked unofficial. The badge had no name, no clipboard, no paperwork, no HOA vehicle. "Which HOA do you work for?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. Neighbors were starting to peek through curtains. Phones came out. Someone across the street whispered, "Is that guy even real?" Lena touched her cheek, eyes still wide. "He said he could arrest me." I took out my phone. "Funny," I said calmly, dialing, "because I'm about to call the police and find out who you really are." For the first time, his confidence cracked, and we were just getting started. The moment I put the phone to my ear, the man in the vest shifted his weight. Just a small movement, but it said everything. Confidence doesn't fidget. Authority doesn't glance around to see who's watching. "I don't think that's necessary," he said quickly, lifting his hands in a calming gesture that came far too late. "We can handle this internally." "Internally?" I repeated. "You assaulted my wife." Lena stood beside me now, still shaken but steady. "You slapped me for a trash bin." A few neighbors had fully stepped outside by then. Mrs. Calderon from 2 houses down crossed her arms. Someone else started recording openly, not even trying to hide it. The man cleared his throat. "Ma'am was being non-compliant." "With what authority?" I asked. He tapped the badge on his vest. "HOA enforcement, I already told you." "Name," I said. "What?" "Your name, and the HOA you represent." Silence. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes flicked toward the end of the street like he was calculating an exit. "That's not how this works," he finally snapped. "I don't answer to homeowners." I smiled slightly. "Funny, because I'm on the HOA board." That wasn't true, but he didn't know that. His face drained of color. I continued, voice even. "And our HOA doesn't have enforcement officers. We have letters, emails, warnings, not random guys in tactical vests." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Phones stayed up. Lena leaned toward me and whispered, "He told me he could fine us $500 on the spot." "That's extortion," Mrs. Calderon said loudly. The man raised his voice. "Everyone needs to step back. This is official business." No one moved. I lowered my phone slightly. "Police are on the way. I've already given them your description." "That did it." "All right," he said fast, palms out. "Let's all calm down. Maybe things got misunderstood." "You slapped her," I said. "There's no misunderstanding." He stepped backward. "She was aggressive." Lena laughed, not humorously, but in disbelief. "I was holding a trash bag." The man turned to leave. I stepped into his path. "You're not going anywhere," I said. "You're going to wait." His voice dropped. "You can't detain me." "No," I agreed, "but I can stand here." For a moment, it felt like a standoff. The street was silent except for distant birds and the faint sound of sirens far away, still too far to be comforting. The man's bravado collapsed completely. His shoulders slumped. "Look, I didn't mean for things to go this far." "Then you shouldn't have touched her," I replied. He swallowed hard. "We can work something out." That was when I knew. He wasn't an HOA cop. He was something much worse and much dumber. The sirens grew louder, echoing off the houses like a countdown. The man kept glancing over his shoulder now, sweat forming along his hairline. Whatever confidence he'd walked in with was completely gone. "Please," he said quietly, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Let me go. I'll leave. You'll never see me again." That was the wrong thing to say. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. "You don't get to decide that after hitting my wife." Lena stood just behind me, one hand still resting on my arm. She wasn't shaking anymore. Her eyes were sharp, focused. "You told me you had arrest powers," she said. "You said you'd tow our car if I didn't listen." The man rubbed his face. "I was just trying to do my job." "What job?" someone shouted from the crowd. He ignored them. I raised my phone again. "I looked up our HOA while you were standing here," I said. "They don't outsource enforcement, and they definitely don't authorize physical contact." The man exhaled slowly like a balloon losing air. "All right," he muttered. "Fine." He straightened up and looked around at the watching neighbors. "I don't work for the HOA." A collective gasp rippled through the street. Mrs. Calderon shook her head. "I knew it." "What do you mean you don't?" I asked, though I already knew the answer was going to be bad. He swallowed. "I'm contracted, independent." "That's not a thing," Lena said. He looked at her, guilt flashing briefly across his face. "I get paid to enforce rules. Some HOAs don't want to get their hands dirty." "And the badge?" I asked. He hesitated. "Bought it online." Phones zoomed in. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable." The sirens were close now, just a few streets away. "Did you think no one would question this?" I asked. He shrugged weakly. "Most people don't. They get scared. They pay." "Pay what?" I pressed. "Cash fines," he admitted. 200, sometimes more. That word cash hung heavy in the air. "So you're scamming neighborhoods," I said, "and today you assaulted someone." He looked like he might cry. "I messed up. I know that now." Lena stepped forward. "You didn't mess up. You chose to slap me." The sirens turned onto our street. Red and blue lights reflected off parked cars and house windows. The man's knees visibly weakened. "They're going to arrest me," he whispered. "Yes," I said calmly, "they are." He turned to me suddenly, desperation spilling out. "Please. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." I shook my head. 5 minutes ago you had power, now you have consequences." As the police cars pulled to a stop, he dropped his fake badge onto the pavement, and that was only the beginning of his problems. The police stepped out of their cars with practiced calm, hands resting near their belts as they took in the scene. A crowd. Phones raised. A man in a fake enforcement vest standing stiff as a statue. "Who called it in?" one officer asked. "I did," I said, raising my hand. "He assaulted my wife." Lena nodded, her voice steady as she pointed to the man. "He slapped me. He claimed he was HOA enforcement and threatened fines and arrest." The officer's expression hardened immediately. He turned to the man. "Sir, can I see your identification?" The man hesitated. That was enough. "Hands behind your back," the officer said. The cuffs clicked shut, and the sound felt louder than it should have. The man's knees buckled slightly as reality set in. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he blurted out. "I swear." "You can explain that later," the officer replied. Another officer collected statements from neighbors, while a third took Lena aside. She spoke clearly, confidently. Watching her, I felt a mix of pride and anger. Pride in her strength, anger that she'd been put in this position at all. The man started talking fast, words tumbling over each other. I was just enforcing rules. People want order. I was helping. You were impersonating authority, the officer said, and using intimidation. When they searched him, they found folded cash, printed violation notices, and a small notebook with addresses, ours included. That's when the man panicked. "Wait," he said, voice cracking as he looked at me. "Please, tell them to stop. I'll give the money back. I'll apologize. I'll do anything." I met his eyes. "You should have stopped when my wife told you to." The officer led him toward the patrol car as he kept talking, his voice rising with desperation. "I didn't know she was married. I didn't think—" "That doesn't matter," the officer said firmly, guiding him into the back seat. The door closed. Silence fell over the street. Neighbors slowly dispersed, shaking their heads, murmuring to one another. Mrs. Calderon squeezed Lena's hand. "I'm glad you're okay." Later that evening, after the statements were done and the cars were gone, Lena and I sat on the couch, the house quiet again. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I am, but I'm glad you came outside when you did." I took her hand. "No one gets to treat you like that, ever." The next week, the HOA sent out an official notice warning residents about scams and impersonators. Turns out we weren't the first street he'd tried this on, but we were the last. And every time I see a trash bin by the curb now, I remember how quickly fake power crumbles when people stand up. Enjoying this intense neighborhood story about fake authority and real consequences? Subscribe for more real-life inspired dramatic narratives like this one. If this story made you feel something, tap the like button. It really helps the channel. And comment below. What would you have done if you were in my place when that line was crossed?